Hello and welcome to another episode of the AI Report right here on News9. I'm Karthik Malhotra, and on this episode we will talk about not just all the trends that made it to the news and headlines in the world of artificial intelligence, but also some scary news that we are picking up, especially when it comes to agents going rogue. Nvidia and xAI to partner with Saudi Arabia's state-backed AI venture Humane to build a massive 500-megawatt data center in the kingdom. The project marks one of the largest Saudi investments in AI infrastructure to date and underscores Riyadh's ambition to become a global hub for artificial intelligence. Paytm CEO Vijay Shekhar Sharma backs Elon Musk's claim that AI would end global poverty. Sharma made the comments at the US Saudi Investment Forum in Washington, where President Trump hosted Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Elon Musk's xAI in advanced talks to raise $15 billion in new equity at a valuation of a mammoth $230 billion. xAI scaling up data center footprints to train more advanced models to catch up with OpenAI's ChatGPT and Anthropic's Claude. Bank of America to spend $4 billion more in new technologies, including AI, to boost productivity and revenue. The bank's 18,000 developers have used AI agents over the past year, reporting significant productivity gains. Paris-based scholars team up with an AI collective to create a theatrical play written in 17th century playwright Molière's style. The team has trained French-developed Mistral AI on Molière's works, personal library texts, and historical documents to replicate his language and humor. The production, The Astrologer or the False Omens, is set to debut at the Château de Versailles in May 2026. Texas Pacific Group and TCS to invest 18,000 crore rupees in Hypervault, Tata Group's new foray into AI data centers. TCS's Hypervault will be funded through a mix of equity from TCS and TPG and additional debt. And Anthropic strikes a mega deal with Microsoft and Nvidia. Deal includes a $30 billion commitment by Anthropic to Microsoft's cloud service Azure. Nvidia and Microsoft committing up to a total of $15 billion in the Claude maker. So let's actually begin with the good part first. And the good part is that the valuation of Anthropic has risen as much as 91% in the last 1 week, up from $183 billion to $350 billion on account of major investments into the company by Microsoft as well as Nvidia, totaling as much as a $15 billion investment, which has made its market capitalization soar by over 91%. From a $183 billion company, it is now valued at a staggering $350 billion. So that was just one news item on Anthropic, but the other one that emerged from the company was a little more sinister in its play. Now, Anthropic has an agentic code called Claude AI. Some of you might have used it, but what really happened in the week gone by was that apparently some Chinese hackers were able to breach into that Claude ecosystem and were able to actually dish out some confidential information to these threat actors which emerged from China. Now, what does agentic AI really do, and why is this story important? Agentic AI, at the very core of it, is different from generative AI on one count. While agentic and generative both are able to understand, study data, understand data, and follow instructions, where agentic AI scores over generative AI is also that it's able to take decisions. But sometimes those decisions, are they the right calls to take? Are they the wrong calls to take? It seemingly becomes difficult for the agentic AI to be able to clearly decipher that. So as a result, some emails that came to Claude and entered Claude's code were mistaken for instructions from friendly actors, and certain confidential information relating to some corporates, including a chemical manufacturing company as well as a government agency, were dished out accidentally, perhaps. But the question that we really ask today on the show is, should agents, AI agents, be trusted with confidential information? And what is it going to cost companies as well as users of agentic AI to make sure that their data is absolutely safe and secure? And who else to discuss this with than Mr. Pradeep Gupta, the chairman of Cyber Media, who joins us on this episode of the AI Report. Mr. Gupta, thank you so much for your time, sir. I want to start with this entire episode at Anthropic that unfolded with Claude getting breached and the larger question about agentic AI taking decisions on the behalf of humans, but perhaps without the experience and the assessment of whether the decision taken is in sync with what the company needs it to do, and what if it goes rogue, like the case that we just saw.
It was not Chinese hackers. Anthropic statement is very clear. It was Chinese state sponsor, and they also identified a group called GTG 1002, which was actually behind that entire thing. Now, the first thing, of course, that anybody who is trying to enter into a system does is that he has to come in as a trusted source. Okay, so what you do is that you compromise VPNs so that it appears that this message is coming from a trusted source. So now if I'm a company, maybe there are universities which are my trusted source. There are, government department which could be trusted source. There could be a friend circle which could be a trusted source. And therefore they disguise themselves and they come in as messages which are coming from trusted sources.
Right.
So that's first. Now, Claude has been used in a very interesting manner.
Yeah.
The idea is to keep simple messages going on there to try and confuse the AI sitting on the other side. Therefore, it appears that these are simple queries that are being made, and so what you do is that you do breach, you do sort of these breaches are coming from trusted sources, and therefore you get into detection of various vulnerabilities which are there in the system. Once you identify those vulnerabilities in the system, then you can manipulate. Okay, and so Claude has been manipulated, and this entire thing has not been done by human intervention.
Right.
All of this has been done actually using AI. Let me again take a simple sort of an example. That I have Superman in front of me, right? Now, if I can try out 135 periodic table elements and therefore realize that he's vulnerable to kryptonite, right? Now, if I was to do it physically, it would take me a long time. But if I can do it as an AI, and if I can manipulate, then I know that this is the vulnerability which is there.
That's right.
So essentially, Claude has been used to find out the vulnerabilities in the system.
Right. The larger questions that then emerges, sir, that it's a clear example of machine versus machine with hardly any human intervention. Now, when you're trying to make a smarter system, which could be an agentic AI, there are also agentic hacks which are emerging almost at the same pace. And larger question really is that, is it too early to let go of human beings from these critical functions? And is agentic AI not ready yet for use in critical information and decision making on the basis of critical information, sir?
You can't do away with agentic AI, because if you want to use AI within your systems, if you want to make sense of your data, then you will have to use agentic AI. Okay. And yes, there will be threats which will be coming, which will be these AI-based automated threats. And you also need to build defenses, which are also AI-enabled defenses. And you have to look at patterns which are different, and based upon those different kind of patterns, this is what happened in this case only. They found that there were different levels of activities that were taking place in certain sites, and therefore decided that some intervention was required. Right. So while you can't wish away agents, because you will need agents definitely, otherwise you cannot use AI in a sensible manner. But then there will be rogue agents, and therefore you need to build defenses against those rogue agents as well.
Right. So what should companies do, sir? I want to sort of leave our viewers with that final sort of message coming from you, that what should companies, what should startups, what should organizations which are actually deploying these agents really do? Because at one point the belief was that come agents, come agentic AI, and you have these agents working round the clock 7 days a week, 365 days a year. At the end of the day, what should companies do? What should organizations do to have their antennae up and form these guardrails to make sure that these breaches are thwarted before they actually become breaches?
The matter is more complex than that, because now there is a DPDP requirement also.
Right.
Because you are responsible for leaking, not just, you can't just get away by saying that there was a breach.
But still 18 months away, sir, and it's seen that these technologies are evolving much faster than regulations around them.
So this is a chore sipahi game, a cops and robber game, which is there. Robbers will become smart, then cops will have to get smarter, then robbers will become still smarter. So this is something that will go on. So the answer to this is that you have to benefit from AI, but then you have to build up a whole lot of protections against that.
And that may require another agentic AI working on fixing those breaches, wouldn't it, sir?
Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, always a pleasure having you here with us on News9. Sir, thank you so much for your time. And of course, we will keep inviting you back on the AI Report as and when we discover more such stories around cybersecurity, around cyber threat, and the rise of the machine. But for today, thank you so much for your time, sir. With that, we will slip into a very short break, but a lot more coming up on the other side, especially this new threat of an AI bubble, which some investors are being warned of, that it's indeed a bubble which might burst soon. Recent company valuations and the hit on Wall Street on Magnificent Seven and big tech companies suggest that perhaps the circumstances could become more dire from here on. We'll get you that on the other side of the break. You're watching the AI Report. Welcome back. You're watching this edition of the AI Report right here on News9, and the world of artificial intelligence never ends to surprise you, but something very surprising has happened in the week gone by, and we are talking about the valuation correction in the Magnificent Seven, the big tech that dominate the United States tech ecosystem. Now remember, just a few days back, there were headlines being made about Nvidia's $5 trillion valuation, unheard of across companies anywhere in the world. Something seems to be snapping in this make-believe world of high valuations. And that snap happens to be by something which is doing the rounds and which is potentially leading to this aggressive selling that we are seeing in big tech stocks. And that is this theory of an AI bubble in the making. Now, look at just the week gone by and the kind of price correction on stocks from Tesla to Nvidia to whoever not, to Meta, Amazon. We've seen massive corrections, but there seems to be a slight flip side to that as well, because in the week gone by itself, we also heard from Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway to be making an almost $5 billion investment in Alphabet, Google's parent company, at a time when over the last 2 years it has been shedding its Apple stocks. So there is this bit of a conundrum. There is high valuation, there is some correction, there are new investments, and the big tech in itself, especially the one dominated by Nvidia, is working in a circular economy where chips are sold to companies which are then renting those chips. So there is an infinite sort of supply and demand book already in place, and then the rental is also getting shared by Nvidia. So there's a circular economy, there are high valuations, there is a lot of profit taking under this myth of, or potentially of a reality of an AI bubble. So we thought, let's put all of this into context. But before we introduce our guest on this show, let's listen in first to what Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, had to say about the ramifications of the AI bubble, if it were a bubble and if it were to burst.
no company is going to be immune, including us. If you overinvest, we'll have to work through that phase. It's also true when we go through these investment cycles, there are moments we overshoot, right, collectively as an industry.
Yeah, so that was Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet. So now let's put this entire conversation around the fear-mongering around AI being potentially a bubble. And who better to join us than Dr. Srinath Sridharan, a market commentator, a company advisor, and of course, a policy researcher who's here with us. Srinath, always a pleasure having you here with us on News9. First up, what's your view? This fear-mongering that is going on in Wall Street, repercussions seen across the world, including Asian stocks as well as Indian markets partly. In your opinion, is AI already in bubble territory?
Karthik, I think AI is not necessarily in bubble territory, but I think we should be in fear territory. The reality is whether we fear AI being a bubble or not, one can never predict bubbles. It can be a very small bubble, it can be a big bubble, but this time, I think we also have to be very conscious of the social impact, social economic impact of AI. Chat GPT, which changed the word called AI, right? Today, AI, everybody uses it probably more than they use the word FOMO.
Right.
I think AI. So to me, AI is also a form of FOMO. You talk to corporates, they're worried saying, what do I do? Should I adopt AI? Because if I'm not adopting AI, am I going to be cost inefficient? Is my productivity going to go down? And all of that, which has a cascading effect on employment and employability. And also the overall societal context of capital markets. The capital markets, because let's look at the structural alternatives. If you did not invest in stocks, what would you invest in? Real estate, probably gold. I'm not even bringing Bitcoin into this conversation. And probably mutual funds and all of that sort. And almost everything is becoming so expensive. And I'm talking about even the US one. Traditionally, capital markets valuation were basis the futures potential, which means the sustainable profits that you can make. And in AI, it has become almost unpredictable.
And we are not just talking billions of dollars of investment. In fact, we are talking trillions of dollars of investment. In fact, MBS, the Saudi crown prince who was in Washington in the week gone by, has pledged $1 trillion worth of investments in the US. Sam Altman, once upon a time, was talking about raising as much as $7 trillion. That is a lot more, almost twice India's GDP in just building the next wave of generative AI. So by what you said, the future earnings potential, which pretty much happens to be a dark hole, nobody really knows what the earning potential of AI is likely to be and the investments which are going into AI. So such high PE ratios, ballooning market capitalization, and now this week gone by of massive corrections. So is there something that big tech knows that people like you and me don't know about?
Yeah, I think the reality is in the last 20 years, the humans are giving up human cognition. And I'm being slightly cheeky and sarcastic here. Do the big techs know something more than them? No, I think they're also putting big money on them. If a company is betting $1 trillion on one single man, Elon Musk, for example, have you ever heard of a $1 trillion salary? No way. And it's becoming a bet. Yes, we might have our views, the moral views around capitalism, and I'm not getting into that debate at all. The reality is the market is betting on something. It'll either win or lose. But in the larger one, the house never loses.
If it were to, let's say, be a bubble or getting somewhere into bubble territory, and if it were to burst, now obviously we know what's going to happen to the big tech, to the Magnificent Seven, and there's going to be a massive meltdown on Wall Street whenever that happens, if at all it ever happens. And that's the big disclaimer here. But is there a direct impact likely to be on India as well, given that India does not have any of its own AI products, so to speak of?
So I think from a national policy level, I think we have a challenge that we need to build a sovereign technology over a point in time. And a classic example is China, which built its own OS, which built its own, despite being under sanctions, all of that. The reality is AI is here already amongst us. Whether it's a bubble, whether it is going to slow down, all of that is immaterial. The reality is, even if it goes flat, even at the existing level, we are at a disadvantage because we do not have products that we can sell with that. And if you don't have products, you can't depend only on service, because intellectual property on those products reside with the Western world or anybody who's creating and not us. and which also means that we need very large capex to build an AI ecosystem.
Absolutely. But anyway, I think a lot more to discuss on this AI bubble theory and whether it is a myth, whether it is a reality in the making. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for on this episode. Srinath, always a pleasure having you, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
And with that, we will slip into another very short break. But coming up on the other side of the break, data centers in space. How and why? We'll bring you answers to that. You're watching the AI Report. Welcome back. You're watching the final segment of the AI Report for this week. Now, if you thought that data centers is the next new big investment, well, you're probably right. I mean, look at the kind of investments being made in India alone when it comes to data centers. Google is investing in a 1 gigawatt data center in Andhra Pradesh, and on the heels of that, we've also heard from Reliance Industries. But the big question around data centers, which offer these massive compute powers to users of artificial intelligence, is something which has been haunting the world. And that is the question of it being sustainable from an environment and a climate point of view. The amount of energy guzzling that happens at data centers is unimaginable. But it seems that one company in the US has potentially solved for that energy conundrum that data centers and data center investments find themselves in. We are talking about a company called CLAUDE. Amit Ranjan is joining me on the show again. Amit, thank you for your time. Now, CLAUDE has done something fascinating, and that is what it calls orbital computing. As I understand, there are data centers being transported to outer space, and the company claims that the problems of energy consumption and carbon footprint are taken care of. Tell us what's happening here.
I mean, when you tell people that within 10 years it could be the case that most new data centers are being built in space, that sounds wacky to a lot of people.
Yeah, so November 2nd this month was where this leap happened, where StarCloud-1 satellite, about the size of a small refrigerator, which hosts the first Nvidia H100 GPU, was launched into space successfully.
Okay.
So this provides 100 times more computing power than any other space-based system.
So what are we trying to say here? We are saying that there is going to be a full-fledged data center up in space. How does it solve for the climate problem? How does it solve for the energy problem? Where is it getting its power from? And what is cooling it down?
Yeah, so the date has already been set. Something that is 100 times bigger than this experiment of the StarCloud-1, which will be StarCloud-2, is scheduled for October 2026. Now, the only cost to this is basically, like you said, it is transporting an entire data center up onto space, and using optical communication techniques, the communication will happen from Earth to space and back again of data.
So there's a satellite communication.
Satellite communication.
Process all your AI requirements.
Yeah.
With a data center which is not anywhere on Earth, it is in outer space.
Yeah.
But why on Earth's name would you send a data center to space?
Two reasons. The only cost, and the cost I'm saying even to the environment that is incurred, is the launch of the satellite that transports it from the Earth to space.
And that satellite launch is actually in a vehicle which is owned, of course, by SpaceX. It's called the Falcon 9. So that, of course, is a cost. But I'm still not clear, how does it solve for the energy and the climate challenge?
Okay, in space, the energy that the data center uses, using resources from the Earth, it does not use in space. It uses solar power, which is abundant in outer space.
That explains it.
Then
There is no sunset.
No sunset. And solar power is abundant over there. There are no clouds, nothing.
So these are data centers powered 100% by solar energy,
in
outer space, where the sun doesn't set. It's getting
24 hours, and it's regenerating energy and power on its own. Okay. Number two, the second biggest guzzler in a data center is the cooling.
Water.
Water. It does not require water. You are in vacuum. which is basically a cooling sink,
Okay.
if so to say.
Right.
So the big two of the carbon footprint that a data center gives onto Earth, they have been removed altogether.
Fantastic. So that means 100% solar, self-cooling because it doesn't require water, it's in vacuum, heat does not spread. But the question is, what if something goes wrong, Amit? If, let's say, there was a problem, a simple networking problem, a simple communication problem, two servers not talking to each other, how do they get fixed? Because in data centers on Earth, you have manpower. What happens in space?
You have artificial intelligence.
Okay.
So these things are being run, powered, everything by non-humans. Like in a satellite, when there is a big problem, there is another satellite manned by humans which goes to fix that.
Right.
I am guessing that when that thing happens, it will be a similar thing that will be happening with these data centers.
So either
which are
humans
much
or, for
bigger.
all you know, the next Falcon 9 or the Falcon 10 could be carrying one of Elon Musk's army of robots, which goes, these are robotic arms and humanoid robots, potentially the Optimus, that goes and fixes whatever has gone wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
So that is, it's basically, and data centers, like you said, all big corporates are going into it. So it's the next big industry. Every big corporate, if it wants to keep abreast with the pace, will have to have its own satellite orbiting around the Earth with its own data center. So therefore, the term orbital computing in corporate universe.
Okay, so just help me understand, overall, is it going to be cheaper to have this compute power in outer space? Is it going to be more expensive, or are costs really not going to be a bother? Because at the end of the day, it seems like a practical thing to do.
So if you have to believe Mr. Philip Johnston, it's a one-time cost.
Okay.
Other cost is that if you are setting up a data center on Earth, you are in any case incurring that cost.
Right. And you're paying governments, you're paying
Governments, you're paying for power, you're paying for cooling, for land. All of that is removed. Maybe the technology is slightly more expensive, but if the CEO, Mr. Philip Johnston, again I'm quoting him, if he's to be believed, your costs come down 10x.
All right. And are we seeing companies sort of warm up to this idea? Have we seen any reactions coming in from the world that, hey, this is the next big thing? Orbital computing, data centers in space is pretty much the next big thing that people want to bet on.
The experiment has been successful. It was powered by an Nvidia GPU.
Okay.
Okay, it went on a Tesla Falcon.
Right.
So
SpaceX Falcon.
SpaceX Falcon. So there are three companies, the big dudes, who are already signed in onto this concept. And they have already fixed the date for a next 100 times bigger GPU data center to be transported in October 2026. So the way is up.
All right. So next year is when we actually see maybe some momentum on data centers in outer space becoming not just an experiment, but a reality for offering that compute power to the whole universe. Thank you so much, Amit, for your thoughts on that story. And with that, we've come to an end of this episode of the AI Report. Thank you so much for tuning in. But do remember, news continues right here on News 9.